Hello all, Linda Vater here in Hydrangea heaven, or a greenhouse that's just filled with Hydrangea macrophylla. You may know them as French hydrangeas, mop-head hydrangeas, big leaf hydrangeas. No matter what you call them, we all experience the same disappointment if we go all through the winter and then we don't have blooms in late spring or early summer. So let's talk about 5 of the most common reasons that you may not have had blooms on your hydrangeas this year. Number 1, maybe like this gorgeous Big Daddy Hydrangea from Southern Living Plants. I mean, this is absolutely a stunner. Some of these blooms will get from 12 to 14 inches across. The entire plant can reach 5 to 6 feet high. But all of these bloom on old wood, and that's, I think, sometimes where the confusion arises. Plants that bloom on old wood, or hydrangeas that flower on old wood, you need to make sure that they're in kind of a protected area. Maybe on the north side of the house where there aren't extreme fluctuations of cold and heat during the winter, or where they won't get some strong south sun. Because what that does is trick the plant into prematurely putting out buds that then can get zapped by a really late freeze. And that is so heartbreaking. I've experienced it a number of different times. So planting them on a north side of your house where the temperatures are a little bit more consistent will help that. So number 2, it may be that all of those froze off, but you could select a variety that will bloom on both new and old wood, like this gorgeous Dear Dolores from Southern Living Plants. Both of these will bloom in kind of a blue or a pink color depending on the acidity of the soil. This is also a vigorous bloomer. It will get up to 5 feet tall, but it will rebloom throughout the season. So it will start blooming during traditional hydrangea time, and then it will set new buds and bloom until fall. So this is something you can do, maybe mixing both of these varieties to get the attributes that they both have. That way, if you do get a heartbreaking late freeze, you will have a plant that will bloom on both old and new wood, and it will ensure that you get blossoms for that year. Number 3 would be incorrect pruning, which relates to what type of hydrangea that you have. If your hydrangeas bloom on old wood, and if you prune in late summer, fall, even late winter, you're going to prune off all of those buds that were set in the previous year. So if sometimes your yard man or you mistakenly want to cut back all of those canes to the ground in winter, then you're sacrificing all of those blooms for that season. So I'm really very conservative about pruning my hydrangeas. I will kind of only prune out any dead or dying canes, and I wait to the last minute to see if I need to manage their size. So make sure that you know what type of hydrangea you have before you start getting out those pruners. Watering and fertilizing. Well, basically the name says it all, hydrangea. They need lots of water, especially if they're in an area that receives afternoon heat or afternoon sun. You want to make sure that you water them at the base. If you water them overhead, this Big Daddy might resent it and get some powdery mildew or some fungal problems. So make sure that you water at the base of the plant. And then depending on where you are, geographically, you might want to check with your extension center to find out when the best time to fertilize is. A good broad spectrum organic fertilizer, granular fertilizer is what I use. And then number 4, you want to make sure that you don't put them in too much shade, because we think of these as shade bloomers, and they can tolerate part shade, but in full shade they're really not going to be very dramatic. So if yours aren't blooming, take a look at the degree of shadiness that you have, and you can kind of prune up the limbs. You can thin out the canopy a little bit, or you can actually just move the entire plant to make sure that they get more sunlight. preferably in the early morning. And then lastly, give them a little bit of time. Typically when you buy gorgeous plants like Dear Dolores or this Big Daddy in the garden center, they're filled with these fabulous, fabulous blooms. And then maybe the next year, they might not meet your expectations a little bit. But I found that all hydrangea, if I give them a chance to really get established, to get some maturity under their belt, then they will bloom really, really beautifully in future years. So if your hydrangea isn't blooming, then you might want to have taken notes, go back and watch it again, or maybe bookmark this video so that you can figure out why your hydrangea didn't bloom for you.